Good to see you. You're in Parliament today, of course, not beachside. Unlucky for you. First of all, pre-selectors don't always get it right. Have they got it right here?
I think the pre-selectors generally get it right. We had a very outstanding field of candidates last night, and I must say Simon Kennedy is an outstanding candidate. In my long time in politics, I have never seen a dossier with such an outstanding array of endorsements, not just from the usual political suspects, but from business leaders, from charity leaders, right across the New South Wales community. And I think Simon will be a very strong voice in Canberra.
A missed opportunity for women? More women in the party?
Well, look, here in the New South Wales Parliament, 8 of the 18 Liberal frontbenchers in my shadow cabinet are women.
Sure.
44% of the parliamentary party here in New South Wales are women. So we're almost at parity in New South Wales. We make great strides in New South Wales, and we've also had a set of policies very much focused on women's issues as well. Universal preschool, improving childcare, not as a welfare handout, but as a way to drive productivity, grants to entrepreneurial women. So women's issues have very much been a focus here in the New South Wales Liberals, and as I say, we're very close to parity in our representation.
It's not
Gwen
really
Cherney,
happening. I was going to ask you about Gwen Cherney. What's in the works for her?
She is an outstanding. Well, look, I would hope to see her in Parliament one day. I've spoken with her today and encouraged her to keep her interest in. She is an outstanding candidate, and I hope to see her in Parliament, state or federal, in the future.
Okay, the state, as you point out, the state branch is doing a lot better than the federal branch. And look, there's not a lot of control that party leaders have, to be quite frank. It all comes down to the branches and the pre-selectors. So what's going on at a federal level? How do you think that could change?
Well, look, I'll leave the commentary on the particulars of the federal composition to Peter Dutton and
do you have any
party leaders down there.
What's worked for you at a state level?
Well, look, what we've tried to do at a state level is identify female candidates and nurture them and encourage them to run. Okay. So, as I say now, we're close to parity. All
right. You would have seen the poll today. Any comment on that? You're pretty happy? You got a bit of a spring in your step, Mark Speakman?
So the poll today shows the Liberals and Nationals ahead of Labor on the primary vote in New South Wales. But look, polls bounce around all the time. The only poll that matters is March 2027 when we go to the election. That said, I detect quite a lot of dissatisfaction in the community with the Minns Labor government. They came to office promising a breath of fresh air. I think almost like a Liberal light government. People weren't coming to the previous government with baseball bats. I think they just wanted a bit of a refresh. And what we're seeing from this government is a government that is lacking any vision, any energy. The most they ever do are cut ribbons on opening our infrastructure projects, and they're not doing anything to help address cost of living, which is far and away the biggest community issue. Okay. They've broken their election promises. They've slashed active kids. They've slashed creative kids. They've slashed first lap. They're not renewing the back-to-school vouchers. And
are you going to reinstate those?
Well, we're 3 years from an election. Well, as the budget stands at the moment, we would be reinstating active kids in particular and that sort of support. I don't know what the budget's going to be looking like in 3 years' time, so I can't promise what we'll do in 3 years' time. But at the moment, we're calling on the government to reinstate active kids in full, back-to-school vouchers in full, and the regional seniors travel card in full.
Well, when you talk about the cost of living, you'd have to admit that Chris Minns is trying to get as many homes built as possible, and he still faces backlash, particularly from a lot of your North Shore MPs, I might say.
Well, he's going a wrong way about it. We have a housing crisis in New South Wales and indeed in Australia, where house prices and rents are at record levels. But it's not just supply, it's demand as well. And he won't lift a finger to ask Anthony Albanese to slash immigration.
So you want to see immigration slashed?
And yet he signs
By how much?
Well, I don't think you can put a number on it, but it certainly has to be reduced.
Of course we can put a number on it.
The levels.
Why not?
No,
the federal government put a number on it every year.
Yeah, well, I think it can go down even further. We have seen record levels of immigration. That has put untenable pressure on house prices and rents here in Sydney and in New South Wales generally. Chris Minns is silent on that. And the problem with his housing supply policy is it's a one-size-fits-all. Far better to ask local communities to design what they want in their areas with sanctions, with a time limit, with the ultimate sanction saying if you don't do it and you're a bunch of NIMBYs, then we, the state, will step in. But this is not what the government is doing. And in fact, under this government's watch, we're seeing housing approvals fall by 15% seasonally adjusted in January. That's the worst in 10 years, and that's the worst across the country. So Chris Minns talks the talk, talks big on housing supply, but we are going backwards in New South Wales under his watch and going backwards compared with the rest of the country.
Okay, so do you want to build more houses in New South Wales, and where should they be built?
Absolutely, we want to see more houses built in New South Wales and more apartments as well. But you get local communities through their local councils engaged in that process. You don't have a one-size-fits-all.
Sure,
where you literally have the housing community.
Some of them are dragging their feet, you'd have to admit, Mark.
Well, then you put limits on it. You say to a council, you've got however long, 12 months to come up with a plan, and if you don't do it, then we will step in. But in the first instance, you give local communities...
Isn't that what Minns has done?
To say, no. So these are rezonings around 31 so-called transport-oriented developments. That's been announced. It's starting in April. There has been zero consultation of that, zero whatsoever. So you're seeing potentially areas at the moment that are detached housing going up to potentially 8 stories when you include the uplift for affordable housing. Far better to engage local communities to design their suburbs, which could be transformed forever, and let them have a say how they see greater density in their area and with infill sites as well. And that's what the democratic process is. At the end of the day, we accept you have to have state direction at the end of the day, but please give local communities the chance. And you've got Rose Jackson, the housing minister, who is instead saying, get out of the way. Get out of the way. How arrogant and lazy is that?
Well, they do. Some of them do have to get out of the way, don't they? Wouldn't you agree?
Well, you give them a chance. You give them a chance to design...
How many chances? There's got to be a time limit on it.
Of course there's got to be a time limit, but that's a chance with a time limit, not the approach of this government, which is to announce major changes effective April with zero consultation. Zero consultation. And none of this was foreshadowed before the election.
Finally, let me ask you about nuclear, because this is being talked about at a federal level. We haven't got the details yet, but often I speak to federal Liberal MPs, even David Littleproud the other day, when we talked about, community expectations and accepting of nuclear. And we often hear about, Lucas Heights and how people are more than happy to live around the nuclear reactor there at Lucas Heights. But do you think the Liberals' plan at a federal level can be as popular? Would it be popular large and small scale?
Well, look, we're still awaiting the details of the federal policy. I've read in the paper that that may be released before the May budget. But certainly Lucas Heights is a long-established and well-regarded facility in the western part of the Sutherland Shire, and it does fantastic work helping medical science in New South Wales.
Yeah, that's right. So it doesn't supply energy, which makes it... Do you think that's going to be different in the minds of the public?
Well, at the end of the day, we've got to have energy sources that are clean, cheap and reliable, and we'll await what the feds have to say on that.
All right, Mark, good to speak to you. We'll speak to you again soon.